Hey guys, what's going on? Blaine back for another Netflix review, and today I'm going to be talking about I Used to Be Famous. I Used to Be Famous is a British comedy drama that tells the story of Vince, a former boy band member who struggles to make a living following his passion for music 20 years after his career ended. One day, while preparing to busk on the streets, he encounters another musician of sorts named Stevie. Vince strikes up a friendship with Stevie, who happens to be autistic, and the two bond over their shared love for music. They decide to take the next step and start their own band together, potentially providing Vince a second chance for his career and Stevie the opportunity to prove his skill as a musician. This movie is quite predictable in presentation, but that's not entirely a bad thing. It doesn't try to be anything more than a simple story about two characters bonding and going through the hardships of their professional and personal lives, and it does its job very well in this regard. Vince, who's played by Ed Skrein, is a sympathetic character who tries to pursue his passion for music, but keeps getting stuck in doing so. Even though he is technically a celebrity, he still struggles in the same way many other people do who try to do what they want to in life, but keep hitting a brick wall. Because of this, it's easy to relate to him and what he goes through in the movie. His personal life is fleshed out well too, as he regrets not being there for his brother when he was sick at a time when Vince's hands were tied by career commitments, and this leaves him in a lonelier place than he's ever been. But despite the challenges he faces, whether it's his bitterness toward a former bandmate's success or people mocking his fall from grace, his determination makes him a great character to root for. He never stays down for long before dusting himself off and getting back up again, so it was easy to stay invested in his goal. The other main character, Stevie, was definitely an interesting one. He possesses an uncanny level of talent despite having no professional experience, yet he keeps getting held back by his overprotective mother on account of his autism, and I related so much to this type of helicopter parenting. As someone who's on the spectrum myself, there were times when watching this movie that I flashed back to moments of my own mother's over-involvement in my life. Even though it's not done out of malice, Stevie suffers from isolation because of it, which stifles his creativity and true potential when it comes to music, so I was happy when he finally had an outlet in the form of Vince. I also appreciated the way his autism was portrayed in this movie. Of course, I have to give major props to the filmmakers for casting Leo Long in the role, who is both autistic and a musician, and he does a great job in his performance, but apart from that, his behavior was a refreshing change of pace. Autistic characters in movies are often depicted as either intelligent savants or completely mentally handicapped, without any gray area in between. Stevie, by comparison, is much more nuanced, being able to socialize properly and express his feelings while still having some typical characteristics of autism. His noise sensitivity was a bit iffy at times, but other than that, I love how Leo brought his role to life. The relationship shared between Vince and Steve is very much the heart and soul behind this movie's story. Despite their differences, the two understand each other in a way that others can't, and seeing them believe in and support each other in their musical endeavors when no one else does proved to be an inspiring experience. But even though the two get along well, they aren't without their fair share of conflict. Stevie's noise sensitivity causes problems at inopportune times, while Vince has connections in the industry that draw him away from Stevie over time. The movie is great at showing the inner turmoil that can form within a band, even if it's just between two people, and the characters do their best to hash things out in a mature way. The musical sequences are probably the best thing about the movie. They go beyond the standard guitar and drum setup most bands have, with Vince playing a synth keyboard and Stevie using a mishmash of different objects as his drum and percussion setup. It was a lot of fun to see how creative they were with their music and how they bonded even more because of it. The songs themselves were also impressive. As far as I'm aware, all the music the duo performs is 100% original and made for this movie, which on top of making the pair's musical journey more authentic, the songs just sound so good. Ed has a great singing voice, Leo is phenomenal on the drums, and it all adds to the upbeat vibe of the movie. Much of the movie has a positive tone spread throughout and doesn't feature too much in the way of drama. It emphasizes the healing power that music can have on others without getting bogged down by the obstacles that the characters face, and in that sense there is some merit to it being a more easygoing experience. However, I felt that a lot of the big conflicts were pretty forced when they did occur. One example is when the pair are playing their first concert, a heckler shows up and starts making a scene, and then everything gets out of control afterward. The drama around this whole moment feels overblown and goes longer than necessary. Stevie's mother tended to irritate me at times as well, though for me it's not so much her overprotectiveness as it is with how much she flip-flops in her opinion of Vince. She approves of him in one moment, writes him off in the next, and likes him again in another, which leaves her character arc inconsistent, and her dancing background never has much of a role in the story either. The only conflict that felt truly memorable to me was when Vince slowly found himself meeting old friends in the music industry again. This causes a rift between him and Stevie as Vince has to choose between his passion or fame, which felt natural, and it was also interesting how it explored the dark side of the music industry and the cutthroat nature of everything involved in it. Even then though, much of what happens in this movie is pretty formulaic, and this is its biggest problem. At its core, it's an average underdog story where the main characters fight their way to the top, overcoming whatever lies ahead in their path. which isn't bad, but it's not exactly mind-blowing either. The story beats are laid out in a way that one can easily see what's going to happen, subplots never feel completely finished, and pretty much everything takes place in as convenient a fashion as possible. For how unique its approach is with the characters, it's disappointing to see how mundane its plot structure is. This being said, the fact that it's conventional isn't a totally bad thing. No movie is ever entirely original these days, and it's pretty clear from the get-go that the movie isn't striving to be more than what it is, which is a feel-good story about second chances, and on that note, the movie nails it. The comedy definitely helps when it comes to the more lighthearted aspects of the movie. The mishaps that Vince gets himself into, and Stevie's tendency to be literal and speak in brutally honest terms to others, always got a good rise out of me. There's also something about the London scenery that I just enjoy seeing. A lot of hustle and bustle takes place in between the pair's rehearsals and personal affairs, and to me, the visuals added a more realistic quality to the story, as well as maintaining a sense of urgency to the character's goals. The theme of redemption is a bit basic in approach, as with most everything else in this movie, but it still works. Even though the two lead characters have their own respective problems to overcome, they help each other forge their path to success, and this promotes a good message about the power of friendship and not having to do things alone. Overall, I Used to Be Famous is a highly enjoyable dramedy telling a mellow, if easily foreseeable tale about friendship and fame. If you like dramedies and you're in the mood for a conventional underdog story, I recommend you check this one out. I do wish there was a bit more novelty to it, as well as some more focus dedicated to its subplots, but it's the main story that matters most, and this one is solid in execution. For anyone who wants to see a comfort viewing movie without too much to think about, this one delivers well on its promises. What did you think about this movie? Did you enjoy how the relationship played out between the lead characters, or were you disappointed by its predictable nature? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways guys, that's going to wrap up my review of I Used to Be Famous. Thanks for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it, and as always stay tuned for the next part, where next time I review the German crime thriller, The Perfumier. Bye bye!